Okay, it's going now. Jack Clemens.
Courtney Cochran.
Oscar Valencia.
Allie Park.
Taylor Rafferty.
What a long last name.
Okay.
Rafferty.
No.
No, I was kidding. Okay.
So today we got to do something that was pretty fun, I thought. I mean, not really, but I don't want to say that on mine.
One thing that I immediately was drawn to, it'll probably be a very quick discussion, I don't know. But on your section, Courtney, on one of the things that you wanted to know more about, it just briefly talked about how gender may affect motivation.
Okay, so this was literally that's all it said. Like, what I put, another factor may be gender. Girls, that's all it said. Just another factor may be gender. Girls overall are highly more motivated, and that's all it said.
That's weird. Maybe, like, I'd have to look into that study to even see, like, how that, you know, why they're making that claim. Do you think maybe there's, like, some social factors that may affect why girls may feel more motivated in the classroom?
I think definitely. Like, I don't like making assumptions and everything.
Yeah.
But, like, you know, I don't know. It seems like in school nowadays, definitely, too, that, like, women have more motivation because they had to, like, prove stuff, almost. Like, it's kind of hard to say as a guy, but, like
motivation equals effort, and then I don't want to make assumptions either, but like, well, that's not even true. Like, I was just thinking sometimes girls might be more likely to follow directions, but that's not even a true statement.
Is it more of like going to the statement, like, I know, like, I heard a couple people say, like, oh, girls shouldn't learn math, that's for boys, stuff. Was it leading to that, or?
It may have to do with
like school in general.
Just like how?
Like, maybe with certain topics, certain genders think they're better at it, so they might have to put in either more effort or less effort. But it also depends with maybe what age group we're talking about.
And then also, like, what they're interested in. I don't know, it's, like, not very, like, gender really. I don't know, we can't, like, say it's gender stuff, but, like, a lot of engineering, like, now a lot of people are promoting, like, females in engineering field because, like, with scholarship and all that, to promote and, like, to, like, I guess, like, encourage, like, motivations with girls getting into STEM field, like, compared to the past. Maybe that could be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I honestly can't even think of anything for that one.
Yeah, it's kind of a bad question.
No, it's not a bad question.
I think it's interesting that they brought it up.
Yeah, and then also, like, if we think about it, like, this really like feminist. Like, this really leads to the statement where, like, people claim, like, woman makes, like, like 70 cents for every dollar a man makes. It's, like, kind of, like, looking into that. Like, if you're a teacher and I'm a teacher, we should make the same amount, all that. But, like, they got that statistic from, like, how women are more into teaching field, like, as we can see in, like, in our major too, like, our, like, department, that most of them are females, and then teaching job does not make as much as money as engineers do.
Yeah.
While engineering field is more of, like,
but it keeps going back to gender roles and, like, just gender roles of men and women, and like girls are expected to do more, like, working with kids and doing more maternal jobs, while, like, guys are more, like, math and science and more, like, harder subjects. So, like, different pay, and I don't know, that's what this keeps reminding me of, is, like, gender roles, and that's not, like, a solid answer for this, but I feel like it definitely has something to do with it. This is just a very wide question, and, like, it's interesting, though.
One point that you brought up, though, that might make sense, like, if currently females are still more prevalent in education and in the classroom, that may motivate younger girls because they have a role model. Because we've talked in past, like, sessions about, like, the power of male role models in the classroom and how that does have a really strong impact, but it's, you know, it's not maybe as common in some classrooms. So if some, you know, boys don't have male role models in the classroom or in education, they may feel less motivated.
Yeah, that is a good point if it had to do with, like, the gender of the teacher. The only thing I could think of that would have to do, like, with the gender of the students, that, like, if in general boys are given more of like whatever in their life than girls are. And learning L2 is almost like kind of, what's the word? Like, compensating, or not compensating, but like compromising for like, so that you can communicate for someone else to help, so that like that person can understand you then. Like it's not exactly for yourself.
Yeah.
If you're L2, you're doing it for
Sure.
other people almost. And so maybe that's why, like, instead of having other people compensate for you, you know, like having other people learn your language, maybe like that's why men are less motivated,
Okay.
because that's you having to do something for someone else. I don't know
That's
if that's
possible.
true, but that's just a thought.
I wonder, like, kind of going into that, like, also looking at, like, family status, like, whether you're, like, the oldest in your family to be in the school and all that.
Or maybe like, I think someone said this earlier about like girls might have more to prove to like,
To like be successful, like to like be motivated almost.
I
just
feel
based
like
on older.
when we talk about gender roles and stuff, it just kind of makes me wonder like what age people, like girls start realizing, because I feel like when you're young, there's a point where you realize, oh, okay, there's like certain differences between boys and girls. But I feel like when does it kind of hit girls that society kind of sees them as inferior to the boys?
Well, I
And,
don't
like,
think that realization comes very early, but there's a
Exactly.
lot of behaviors that girls get like forced on very, very, very early. Like when you're still a baby, people are telling you you're pretty and like you're like watching
Yeah.
princess things, and it's like that is always the focus.
There was like a study and it was like, in my psychology class they had two babies and I think it was the same baby but they just put in blue clothing or pink clothing. And when people saw it they would say like the girl was dainty and pretty and delicate and the boy baby was like strong and like stuff like that, just using very gender specific
That's
things,
weird.
like when they're a baby, like,
Yeah.
so it just, yeah.
But I think that by that point, I think it has a lot to do with like what you said earlier too about just like the male teacher, the female teacher. Just because I feel like that does have a lot to do with it. Especially since like most kindergarten, preschool teachers are all female until you're like fourth, fifth grade when you start putting them in. So
I think that's also related, just even like of seeing somebody who's like you and feeling represented in the classroom, even if it's not gender, like even someone from your own language background or, who shares the same ethnic background as you or cultural background. Because like if you see just predominantly white teachers, then there's some sort of disconnect. But to have, a teacher who's maybe experienced some parts of their life and shares some experiences with you, that's pretty powerful.
I think we already know the answer to this question now that I think of it, but I was just wondering why there was probably, in my experience, probably more like female teachers for younger students, and then sometimes there's like more male teachers for like high school. So I was just wondering why. Do you think that has to do with gender roles too?
Yeah,
I
like,
think it does for sure.
just like, what, like, does that have to do with gender roles in general? Like, why
Like-
teachers
like-
are more male?
Like
Or
for
more-
kindergarten teacher, or first grade teacher, it's usually gonna be a female like 98% of the time, but then when you get to high school, there's still like usually more females, but there's at least a couple more male
Yeah.
teachers. So I'm
Yeah, it probably has to do because guys aren't really taught to be, I don't know, empathetic, soft. Like, it's all like with the motherly stuff, I guess. Like people who want to be elementary school teachers are people who have learned motherly traits because of their gender.
I mean, I feel like in high school there was definitely more guy teachers in high school, but I don't think that it's like a bunch of guys to like a bunch of male teachers to women
Yeah.
teachers. But
I'm
yeah, I
just-
think
Yeah, I was just saying like it increased at least
Yeah.
a little bit from like younger.
yeah, and it's just like it has a lot to do. I think that it definitely is all I think gender roles use. Like as a male going into like elementary ed, like it's kind of like I don't really have an elementary, like I don't have a teacher that I'm just like, a male one that I'm like, I want to be like this person because I never had that. So it's kind of hard for you to imagine yourself in the role of a kindergarten teacher while being a male because there's,
Yeah.
and then also like, I am someone, I mean, I definitely like gender roles and stuff, like I'm not all about like super like masculinity and stuff,
Mm.
but I feel like even sometimes I'm just like, oh man, I'm gonna be a guy going into like, like total like women's field, you know, and like my cousin also is gonna be a nurse, and he also had like those like, oh, I'm gonna be a male nurse and stuff like that, you know, it's like a little thing that's in the back of your mind once in a while, like no matter how much you like don't really care about it and stuff, it is something that's always there, and,
Yeah.
you know, I feel
I
like
think
that's,
you'll stick out a little bit.
yeah, I know that's gonna be interesting.
That's interesting, because that's like another thing we said briefly, like you kind of look up to like, what roles people are taking and like what roles people of like your own gender are doing, like guys look up to like older males and girls up to older females and see what they're doing and be more likely to.
For like my own experience, and I'm trying to like tie this to language too, because like, yeah, that's the point of the class. So for my own experience, my dad taught at a school that was predominantly like ELL students, and so they tried to have people from the Spanish speaking community come in and speak to them and be like kind of like role models or mentors, or even just people that of interest, you know, that would like show that like, you know, there are people that have, you know, come from the same community that you grew up in that have become very successful, and you know there are resources out there that people, you know, you can do this too. So they like my city has a few Latino women who serve on like the city council, and then we have a few Latina like or Latino lawyers and stuff. So those people came in and just kind of like shared their experiences, and were like, you know, these opportunities are there for you, and you can like accomplish this.
Yeah. I think like a last note I had for like for why though there are more male teachers in high school, is that a lot of teachers from our generation didn't exactly need to get education degrees, you know.
Yeah.
At least I don't think so, but like I know that a few of my teachers kind of fell back into teaching after like getting like their science degrees and stuff like that, and at that point, you know, then you're like a male who knows like higher level stuff, so you're not gonna go teach elementary, and so they kind of fell back into teaching. I had a couple teachers at least like that. So there were a couple questions about age and stuff. I had a question about it too.
Yeah.
About like I can't exactly remember what mine was, but you two talked about like why is it different for ages, or is it even like the way that you teach L2 should be different for different ages. My question was that like, because when you're in high school or something, then you have acquired L1 basically completely, I'd say, almost completely. At that point, do you try to teach L2 like a class, like not so much integrated bilingual, you know? You kind of make it English only at that point, or?
That depends too, though, like what point people are like what point in the process of acquisition they're at too. Because like you and I both had points where we talked about how like roughly it takes about 7 years.
Yeah.
So if somebody just started or is still not quite proficient with English, I think, I don't know, my position is that it's hard to teach them.
Yeah, no matter what.
For my wiki, Wi-Fi thing
Yeah.
or whatever, I had to talk about submersion versus immersion, thank you. I was the one who did it, I can't remember. And they both have really valid points. They're both like pretty valid ways of teaching, I guess. And submersion was just kind of like dropping, just basically like completely submerging it, like you're just dropping the person. If they speak Spanish, no English, you're just dropping them into a mainstream English classroom, like, you know, apparently that's a faster way to learn it because like they're being super exposed to it.
Yeah.
So that's a way to learn it and stuff. And I feel like it definitely doesn't answer a lot of like what the question is, but I feel like let's say that they've been learning for 3 years, they've been trying to learn English for 3 years now, and on the third year, and say like other kids are like doing pretty good at it, and then they're kind of whatever. If you drop them in that, like you just soak them into that full English classroom, I feel like according to the people that argue forced immersion, that should be enough for them. Like at one point to be able to like super improve. So, I mean, I understand that like, who knows what age you can be to do that, you know, like,
Yeah.
okay, like what age should this person be finally be able to do this and that? But it honestly really just depends, because there are immersion schools and there are just regular classrooms, right? So it's like, I mean, everyone has been put in a different position, everyone's been like taught differently. It's like, there have been students who have been like dropped into classrooms without being able to speak English and stuff like that, and just expected, and I really just think that it depends on what path you're taking, and I don't really think there's an age limit. I think it just goes by grade. Because like we said with like our Washington state laws and stuff, like there's certain requirements that people have to meet at certain levels. So I think that it's just like what grade and what level they have to like, you know, what level they have to be at this point, like through their testing scores and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I think that when people are like younger, then they'll eventually learn it. I think if they're like 32 years old and being put into it, it's gonna be difficult. But yeah, it's a complicated. I was gonna ask you about that, so I'm glad you brought it up yourself.
I wonder how TESOL education is taught and different.
Tesla,
Uh-huh.
wasn't it?
That's like for adults.
I would imagine like a foreign language classroom, like if you're learning English as a foreign language, which is now like the new title of that program, TEFL, I don't know,
Yeah.
I think it is. Like you would maybe want to speak a lot and learn a lot in your L1, because like for me, I'm like learning Spanish, but like I'm getting a lot of the concepts. Like if it's a learning classroom and not an acquisition classroom, I'm getting a lot of these concepts by them being translated to me in English. So I don't know. That'd be interesting to see it.
So I'm gonna just kind of pivot this to a different idea, and I was wondering, I'm sure I thought about this. So I had to read about like characteristics that make successful L2 teachers, and one of the points that they covered actually a lot was the ability to have like proficiency for like the teacher to be able to speak and like, do things in both languages, which is like, yeah, like it's obvious, like that'd be that's ideal, you know,
Yeah.
because the article went on saying that like beyond just learning it, like while you're in the classroom, there's a lot of things you can do when it comes to code switching and being able to transition between languages really easily. Like that helps people learning languages really well. But that also kind of made me think about like, if this is like what's successful, like what they know is successful for people who are gonna learn a second language, it seems to me like there's like, I don't know, like how many schools do you go to where there's like 1,000 resources for people that are like for L1, L2, you know, kind of deals, you know? And it just is like one of those things where like, oh, this is the ideal way of doing it, but we can't do it,
Yeah.
kind of, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's why they have a lot of those alternative programs, so that if you don't have teachers that are bilingual, you can have teachers that are primarily teaching in English.
I think it's definitely important for teachers to at least take like a cultural awareness type certification, I don't know, you know, just like ELL in general, because like we don't need to know other languages in order to be certified in ELL and stuff like that, you know.
For me personally, like I think beyond just like acquiring a second language, which is gonna take forever, like I don't know if I'll ever like actually acquire a second language, because it's a very broken up process for me. At least understanding like the structural differences in those languages seems like they'll be helpful for me, because if I can understand how the language and the grammar is structured differently, I can maybe understand why people are having a hard time understanding concepts in English and addressing like, okay, so usually it's done like this way in your language, and we do that thing just differently like this, like maybe that like shows that you've taken the time and you have an understanding of, you know, how this person understands this concept.
It's definitely ideal. It's definitely ideal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wonder how much you can push teachers to know multiple languages, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like, because I do think about that a lot. I'm just like, okay, like I can speak a couple languages. Like, I kind of have that advantage. But there's like other people who can. It's just like, it's kind of hard at this point to completely, you know. It's like I can see, I've been studying French for a while, but I can't see myself really teaching it because I'm just like, I don't think I'll ever be at like 100% with this language that I can teach in, you know, Spanish, yeah, English, obviously. But that just, I feel like, it's just kind of hard because I'm like, sometimes I just don't really understand how that works. Like, for example, like with the TESOL program, because I went to a meeting, like, you can teach English in another country without having to really know anything of like those people's language. I'm just like, oh, okay, that's really interesting. Like, they were actually like kind of like fluffing that up, being like, you know, you don't have to be like completely proficient in their language. Like, this is just a funny thing. And I was like,
That's hard.
yeah, like that's hard. Like, how do you communicate? Like, how do you even communicate with people, like with them? And like the part I was reading too also talked about like the communication thing. Like, the most important thing about learning a language, I guess what they were trying to say is like, it's hard to teach like your student like every single word in the dictionary. Like, you're never going to be able to do it. Like, this is not how it works. You can't teach them. So like the most important skill you can teach them is how to problem solve in their own language. Like how to like read between the lines, how to find things in context.
How to
But-
ask questions.
Yeah, but then that just like is like, how do you like, how much are you supposed to know like to be able to
Yeah.
teach? You know, like even like with not just with languages, like with anything, like how like obviously you go to school here, you get your degree and stuff, and that's enough to be like, okay, this person can teach. But like, we all have teachers who obviously don't know what they're doing, and sometimes a lot of times teachers are hired to do things that they don't even they don't even know what they're talking about. My freshman year here, like 2 years ago, I had a seminar class, and the professor straight up was like, I have no idea how to teach a seminar class, so we're just gonna figure this out together. Like, what do you guys think a Socratic seminar is? And then we just kind of put our ideas together and then just did that. And
Weird.
never showed up to that class again,
No.
you know, because it's like, the teacher doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, what, you know?
No kidding.
And I don't know, just a lot of things that just, I feel like this whole article had a lot to do about like the idealistic, you know, like this is how like, it should be ideally, but it's like, there's a lot of things, yeah, I know. There's a lot of things that like.
Is there like any way you can like help, like, what is the extent to which a teacher needs to like be prepared for all this information, or like what you were saying, like, is there any?
I think at least, like you were saying earlier, at least they need to be culturally aware. Like,
Yeah.
especially that there are cultural differences.
Mhm.
And recognizing those as challenges and barriers.
Yeah.
And then some understanding of language itself. I mean, like, I'm an English major too, so I had to take grammar classes. So I feel pretty confident, not even in, like, English grammar, but knowing, like, different parts of grammar in general
Mhm.
is helpful. So, like, I think that is a tool, but I don't know.
Yeah. It might also have to like start in, you know, grade school for teachers, because like, I mean, people should be expected in general just to know just 2 languages by the time they're out of high school.